In this presentation, we'll be learning about the thirds and the sixths as intervals, both minor and major of both kinds. And these two intervals are related. We'll talk about that at the end of the video, how they're related. And it's kind of interesting, but it also makes it a little bit difficult for us when we're trying to distinguish them with our ears. So we'll get into that a little bit later. In general, thirds and sixths has a really sonorous, sweet sound, very pretty to listen to, and they actually are the types of intervals that will give chords their quality. So if it's a minor chord versus a major chord, it's really dependent on these types of intervals. But it can be difficult to distinguish them, so we'll be really listening for that. One thing to remember, if you hear an interval that's sweet but a smaller interval, you want to think about that as being a third. And if you hear an interval that's a little bit wider, that more likely is going to be a sixth. Starting with a minor third, this is equivalent to 3 half steps, or if you wanted to think of it as a whole step plus a half step, I wouldn't stop you. And when it's written on the staff, you have to make sure that you actually write a third. That means A, B, C, 1, 2, 3. Right? It's like do, re, mi. You have to skip the B. You can't write an A to B and call that a third. That will be a second. Silly. So make sure you do that properly. If we look at this ladder diagram and we start on the letter A, we're going to move up 3 half steps from A, or 3 spaces. 1, 2, 3. So from A to C is a minor third. When we write that on the piano keyboard, we've got A here. We're going to go up 3 piano keys using all of the keys. 1, 2, 3, up to C. On the staff, you'll notice that a third will be from one space to the next space above it, or if it started on a line, you'd go up to the next line as well. So here's A to C, again as a minor third. I will now play that on the keyboard. Another way of writing a minor third, starting on the letter F, we go up 3 half steps and we have to make a choice because we've got G sharp and A flat there. Well, going back to the rule we said before that you have to write an actual third, we know that we can't use G because that would only be a second. So that rules out G sharp. We know that F to A flat therefore is a third, and more specifically a minor third. That was what that would look like on the piano keyboard, F to an A flat. And again, written on the staff, you've got a space note to a space note, assuming treble clef in both of these examples. The one on the bottom is incorrect. That would be a second. Okay, even though to our ears it would be indistinguishable as a sound, to our eyes we can see a difference there. Here's F to A flat. A major third sounds very similar because it's actually very close. As a minor third is 3 half steps, a major third is 4 half steps. Or you can also think about this as being 2 whole steps, or really the best way to think about it is being a major third as an interval in the major scale. When it's written on the staff, of course, it needs to be written as a third. If we start on C and we go up the ladder 4 half steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, there's our E, of course. And on the piano, there's C to E. Again, C major scale being all the white keys, we simply skip a key and there automatically we will have a major third. Written on the staff, again, we have C to E, space to space. Very pretty sound there. If we start on the note D and go up 4 half steps, we have to make a choice between F sharp and G flat. Well, we can't go further than F sharp because that would be skipping E. So we have to rule out G flat as some sort of strange fourth and stick with the major third, D to F sharp. On the piano keyboard, looks like this. Up 4 of those keys from D. And on the staff, we've got D to F sharp. Again, in the bottom example, which is improperly written as a major third, even though it sounds exactly the same, that's written as a fourth, right? A D to a G flat. We want to keep it a major third for our writing purposes, so the top one is correct, D to F sharp. Jumping ahead to the minor sixth, we've got 8 half steps or 4 whole steps. And when it's written on the staff, you have to make sure that you've gone a sixth. So starting on A and going all the way up to an F. Again, starting with A as number 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you would have to go all the way up to some sort of an F for that. Starting on an A at the very bottom of our ladder, we're going to go up all of those 8 half steps, and there's our A to F for a minor sixth. Written on the staff, you can see that you're going from a space note up to a line, or if you started on the line, you'd be going up to a space, of course. And let's give a little playing example of that one. A to F. Doesn't have a minor sound really to it. It has a pretty sound to it, so that's why it gets confusing. Again, if we start on C using this, we're going to go all the way up to an A flat or a G sharp. Which one is it? Well, if you count up your notes, C, D, E, F, G, A. It has to be some sort of A, so it's got to be A flat. We rule out that G sharp. Again, on the top there, we've got the correct written minor sixth, C to A flat. On the bottom one, it's some sort of an augmented fifth. We don't use that quite yet. It's more advanced. Here's what that sound is, C to A flat. For the major sixth, it's of course 1 half step wider than the minor sixth, or 4 whole steps plus a half step. Really, I want you to think about this as the naturally occurring sixth in a major scale. Of course, when it's written on the staff, it has to use the proper spelling. If you're using this older version of the ladder, when you start counting up, you'll have to jump to the bottom from F all the way up and jump down to A and then keep going up until you get to D. So F to D is our major sixth, right? So F to D is that. It looks like the staff, looks on the staff like this. Ain't it pretty? So how are these things all related? Well, if we build a minor third on A, we go up our 4 half steps, it brings us to C. Then we've got A to C. If now we build a major sixth on C, that's going to bring us all the way up to an A. Well, that gets a little bit confusing. We have 2 intervals with the pitches that A and C. Of course, one of them is a smaller interval and one of them is a larger interval. But they're both using the same letter names. And looking on the staff here, we're thinking treble clef again. We've got A to C as a third, and then C up to the high A is a sixth. Okay, it can be very difficult sometimes to hear the difference between that and they seem to have the same quality, even though they're 2 different intervals. Okay, they're kind of can be considered inverse intervals. So the negative of the one fills into the positive of the other. Again, because we have 12 half steps in an octave, of course, if we use 4, or I guess, excuse me, in this situation, 3 for the minor third and then 9 for the major sixth, we get that octave. And of course, major third has an inverse of a minor sixth. So those 2 things are going to sound very similar. Part of our work in class will be then to distinguish between those things. But just know that those can be confused, and sometimes it's just hard to hear the difference between a minor third and a major third. So we'll be going over that.